Okay, in today's video, we're going to talk about Google Display Network and how it can produce poor quality leads, how you can actually fix that, okay? For you guys that sell a product out there, they're actually looking to make a cart, somebody to go through your shopping cart, Google Display Networks are a little bit easier to get working. It's easier to get actual, positive confirmation that the traffic that you're buying will work, even though it's still definitely a challenge in which this video will go through and tell you how to improve as well. So there's a lot of different reasons why the Google Display Network ads don't work. And when I say Google Display Network, I'm talking about anything besides remarketing. Or in other words, traffic coming in that's not been to your site yet at any or hasn't engaged with you at all, your brand at all, not a customer, not anything. And I'm going to explain why that is and how you get around it. Getting around it is the key to get your ads to work. So most people think that the ads don't work and they give up trying. This is like 90% of people who try it, okay? Because it is difficult and you need a lot of information up front to be able to get it to work. And for the person who's just randomly trying this the first time themselves, they basically almost have no hope without this information at hand. You'll go broke before you figure out how, what you need to know, basically. And that's why most people just say it doesn't work and they get on with life. It has a ton of potential if you know how to do it. So I'm going to give you that information on this video. Lots of people think Google Display Network for new visitors, non-remarketing, doesn't work due to the fore-knowledge you must usually need to know going in and before totally going broke trying. So everything about PPC is, how do I hit break even before I run out of money? Because if you do that, you should be jumping up and down in joy, because you're with the use of your data. And the longer that your Google or Facebook or what have you, the ad network you're working with has to run the ads and use their own AI machine learning systems, the better your results will get, okay? To a point, obviously, but generally it could go on for years. Your ads will slowly get better and better and better. You just keep in mind you have to be patient for that process to happen. But if you get to break even, in terms of what it costs to pay for your ads and then the delivery of the product or service itself, whatever, it's all a downhill slide from that point forward. So you don't need any more money to put into the system. So you're basically, this engine's running for free now, which now just gives you more and more money all the time. That's your whole holy grail goal when you're doing PPC, of which you try to get one thing working. You reinvest the money for when it eventually does work back into a new method, new traffic source, and you get that one to work. It's almost like building up a list or inventory of houses, a real estate empire. One income from one house, once it's paid off so far, goes into another, and you build up your empire that way. And so all you really got to know how to do is get one thing to work, and once you get that, that gives you a little bit more insight how to do the second one, and on it goes. Google Display Network is generally something that people don't do right away, and for good reasons. It's not as easy to do, but it can be. I can tell you up front that I've made just as much money from Google Display Network driving new traffic in as I did from Google search ads in a situation where I was set up and had the authority from the client to be able to run the Google Display Network. And what's that quote-unquote authority? Well, it takes more runway to get to that break-even point with Google Display Network ads, okay? You got to expect that going in. It's not as easy as I sell red shoes and I'm going to show up when somebody types in buy red shoes. Obviously, that's going to take less time to figure out, right? I mean, there's still some, by the way, behind that, there's a lot more than just whether or not somebody searches for buy red shoes. You're not going to get all of the people or none of them. You're going to get some portion based upon all the other traits that user has. Their age, their demographics, other than age, I should say. What they did prior to making that search. Google learns, based upon that keyword, what section of that traffic on a general basis you should be getting versus somebody else. So with Google Display Network, that whole system, if you will, is put on steroids because there's a lot more variables, okay? So there's more runway. However, like I was saying before, which point I want to get across to you, so you don't say, oh, this is too much work, forget it. You go ahead and, at the same time, go ahead and pick all the low-hanging fruit. You absolutely do that. At a certain point, you're looking for something else to do. Google Display Network will work. You use this method, you can have just as much money as you've made already getting the Google Display Network to work for you, getting past that break-even point, and constantly keep making more and more money from it to eventually gets to be a huge amount of money once you've got the momentum behind it going already. And a lot of times that'll be about 6 months of running the ads. What I've said many times in my videos is you dedicate a budget that you can afford to lose. It's kind of like going to a casino. You don't gamble what you can't lose. And if you come out ahead, great. But in this case, you know that you're going to eventually win. It's just a matter of when, not if, but when. We're going to run the ads. Might take 6 months before they hit the break-even point. We know what the break-even point is because we've calculated it up front. And now it's just a matter of waiting it out, making adjustments, but still being patient and waiting it out till we hit break-even, to where we, at that point now, we know we aren't going to have to put money into the system anymore. The money we put in initially is just to kickstart the system. Okay? So it takes more runway. Therefore, if you don't have as much money to really lose up front and you got more time than money, start with a smaller amount of money. Of course, I will admit, the less money you put in, the longer it will take, because the machine learning algorithm that Google has needs a certain volume of data. It's not time-based. So you're not really getting by with anything else. It kind of will be based upon how much you need a certain amount of clicks. That said, if you spend money quickly, I have a lot of clients that come to me and say, I want to spend 10 grand a month on this. I say, we need to make changes, and if you spend the money too quickly, we're going to spend more money than we need to before the next change. So there's a certain amount of pace that we should go about doing this, if you will. It might be 1 to 3K a month on a display campaign like this, because we got to make a lot of small adjustments to it to weed out the 80% that don't work very well in terms of the age demographics, the gender, the device level, what state the user's from, adjusting bids on each one of those, and eventually get it to work. But I know the potential of this, and because the client has me to explain this to them, they don't panic 2 months in and it's not working already. I explain that what you're really looking for is a progressive increase in the profitability of the numbers. You may be at a negative ROI for many, many months, but as long as you're getting a better ROI, better trending ROI, you should know eventually you'll hit break even, okay? So that's what you're really looking for when you're starting out. So anyway, I just wanted to throw all that stuff out there ahead of time, because even with this information I give you, you have to know these core concepts before you go in to expect it to ever work to your advantage. And so you don't come back to me and say, hey, Corey, it didn't work. Well, there's certain things that you can't expect it going in. But the main reason why the ads don't work on Google Display Network, generally speaking, is because unfortunately a lot of it that you'll get on a site is bot traffic. So if you were expecting it, I could confirm for you right now, yes. And Google, don't kill me. I'll explain why. Not that Google Display Network doesn't work. This is promoting Google Display Network, but there's certain things that, yes, ultimately is going to be true. There's bot traffic that will eat up a budget before any real people that you want to see the ads do see the ads. And ultimately, the publishers, i.e. the people who work and partner with Google to have the ads that you're going to use, in which the site that the ads show up on, benefit from this bot traffic. So there's nobody, Google, unfortunately, and the person who is doing profit sharing with Google of your money, in which the ads show up on, both benefit from this bot traffic. Now, I will admit, Google's not trying to deliberately trick somebody. It's just a matter of where's the incentive to weed out the bot traffic. Google tries as best as it can, but at the same time, as long as they can get some good traffic in there, people will still buy the traffic, unfortunately. And for even big sites like Forbes.com, I've advertised on those sites for business customers. A good chunk of it, double digits range. I won't say too much here because I don't want anybody to come after me, but will be bot traffic, okay? You got to expect that going in. So therefore, it can't work right away, because that's why it takes many months generally for this to work. Not only for that reason, but respectively, it's not just as easy as just, okay, it was advertised in this spot and it should work right away. Because that in and itself is not an effective strategy because all this bot traffic exists. The answer to the equation is you add a little bit more sophistication to your tracking so that you don't get all this bot traffic, okay? So why does it work still for these publishers to be able to get away with this? Like I said, for the site itself, they're trying to generate revenue, okay? They're going to get more revenue by having more available ad impressions. They're going to get more ad impressions by allowing this bot traffic to go through. But going a step further here, why is it that anybody eventually figures out, screw all this, banner ad traffic on all together? There's too much bot traffic. The answer to that is, this is my opinion, okay? Again, nobody come after me. This is just my opinion. But the big brands, at a certain level, I don't work with really, really big clients because at that point, when you're, if you were doing a PPC campaign for Hershey's chocolate, they don't give a crap about conversions. They want brand exposure. How many times have people seen the ad? Why? Because they're basically brainwashing everybody so that the first thing you think of when you think of chocolate is Hershey's, so you buy it. It works. It's just something different than a startup brand that's trying to get a chocolate brand started up that has limited money. And ultimately, if they were to shotgun blast their advertising like Hershey's would, they would run out of money before the goal was met. So it's only something you can do once you have the power to spend millions of dollars in advertising already. So basically, because of that, there's so many people with so much money out there to basically do this shotgun blast advertising that even if the little guy who does need a return and does need real traffic to keep going doesn't get it, they know somebody else who doesn't need it right away and is doing the shotgun blast approach will still come in and take up their ad inventory anyway. Okay, obviously they would like it if no bot traffic came in and they could help the little guy, but I think from my view looking in, they're going to make more money with bot traffic than not bot traffic because that gives them an artificially increasing amount of available ad impressions they can sell. Okay, again, this is just my opinion. All I can say is you go ahead and try to advertise a banner ad on some of these sites where you think your customer should be, high income, whatever. You're going to get a whole bunch of clicks right away. Before the people you want to see it, potentially, usually, we'll just say, your budget will be gone for that day and nobody saw it that you want to have seen it. So I want to say that on the flip side, if there was a way to buy the ad space to where it was a flat amount where you could show up on that site all month, no matter how many times clicked it, that would actually be a better deal than paying per click because then now you're not, the bot traffic, it's an irrelevant thing for you right now. And so if I were to try to advertise on Forbes.com because I'm trying to go after wealthy, affluent business owners with a $300,000 a year U.S. income because I'm selling a luxury, business product, then I'm going to go directly to Forbes.com, look at their media kit, find out how much a dedicated ad spot is, and buy that, not buy it through Google's platform. So again, Google, don't attack me here. You're doing something really good, which is I know Google's actually trying to improve here, even though they're not going to, at the end of the day, they're not going to be hurt too much if there is some bot traffic because someone will also still buy their inventory. They're also trying to weed it out. They're not deliberately benefiting from it versus these sites. They have a way less incentive to actually change anything is all my point is here. Now, what is Google actually doing to try to improve the situation for their advertisers who want to buy traffic through Google Display Network and drive traffic to their site? They're adding in more sophisticated learning algorithms to figure out what traffic actually is good traffic versus not. Particularly, they do that through, they've always done it through click fraud prevention. And the way that they do that is they measure how many hops traffic, how many routers the traffic has to go through. They have proprietary algorithms that they've had going back to 2007 that you can look up. where they can identify if a visitor is a fake visitor or a real visitor based upon that hop traffic and analyzing it. I don't want to get into detail on this, but more recently, they figured out, because they have so many people using Google, so many people using Chrome, so many people using Google Analytics, they have the advantage of analyzing, and in your particular case, the customers you have coming in, all the data points those customers have versus all the other data points that all the other users that use Chrome have, and cross-compare what the signature is between your customers' traits and what the traits, like the likelihood of certain traits being true versus not true, or applied to these people or not applied to these people versus the general public, and can use that information to see if a click should be actually paid for your company or have your ad show up for that person or not. So realistically, it comes down to, going back to full circle here, getting enough data so you can figure out what works and doesn't work, so that you can make revisions, but also Google understands how to put you in front of the right people, i.e. people that also are going to be people that they can put you in front of the right people, the people that are not actually fake bot traffic. In other words, they understand that your customers, out of the million possible traits that they could have, data, that they collect data on, they have pretty consistently these 30 traits. And so if you're advertising on Forbes.com, if they don't have these 30 traits, they're not going to have your ad show up now. And so when the fake bot traffic doesn't have those 30 traits, you see how it can get filtered out now. This is how it basically works in a nutshell or overall. So you got to have some data behind your campaigns, got to have running them for a while for Google to understand how to weed out the bot traffic. Again, Google's not trying to deliberately build their company on fraud here. That's not the case whatsoever. It's just, and then and I will say, for like on the side of like Forbes and these bigger sites that's news sites that sell ad impressions as their business model, they don't have the tools like Google has to block it anyway. So I don't know what they can necessarily do too much. But again, I still think they're a little bit not trying very hard either, at least for the publishers themselves. Now, so the answer to this problem, to be able to get your ads to work, there's a very distinct program that you can do, and which I do on our clients' campaigns, to skip over all the bull crap and get to the point where you are at the break-even point, like I talked about before, the holy grail part where your campaigns are going to grow, finance themselves. First of which, more layers of tracking. So I talked about this briefly, how this works. You're going to have to pay to play a little bit. You're going to have to run your display ads, and you're going to have to set up your conversion tracking so that when somebody buys, that customer can be analyzed by Google to get you a customer that they'll try to look for a customer like that in your next set of ads that show up. And if you don't have a way to track a customer, whether or not they purchase or not directly through your site, but they purchase offline through the phone or whatever, you got to get that data into your ad account through offline conversion tracking is what that's called, so that Google has that data about who was a customer, who was not. Otherwise, what happens is you're going to get some bot traffic to fill out the form. Google's going to look at the people who filled out the form and say, oh, we need more of those people. Well, those people were BS bot leads anyway. So you could see now you've got into something that will spin out of control and get you more and more worse traffic on an ongoing basis versus better. You'll have the algorithm working against you instead of for you. Facebook ads work similar to this. Now, a lot more people realize Facebook ads, not always, but a lot more, I would say, proportionally understand Facebook ads as a process. You need to run the ads for a few months for the lookalike algorithms a lot of people use to recognize how to run your ads. But when they run Google Display Network, for some reason, they just don't understand this. It's very similar to that. Moving forward, you're going to create a lot of remarketing lists in order to get the first click traffic to work. And so what I'll do is if I have products in a bunch of different categories, I'll create a remarketing list for every person who looked at every category of product but have not become a customer yet. And then I'm going to create another set of remarketing lists for customers, another remarketing list for all the customers, but also broken down to each category of customers that I have. And I'm going to set that up before I run any display ads at all. What that's going to do is it's going to seed the system so Google can analyze the traffic that you do have, figure out what traits that they have, and then once they figure it out, they can now show your ads to people who exclusively have those traits, which is your one feature that gets the bot crap traffic out of your stream of clicks that you got coming in that you're paying for. So what will happen is you set those remarketing audiences up. They're not going to generate what they call are similar to audiences right away. You're going to need to either import a bunch of customers, which you can do, by the way, through customer lists. You can upload a list of customers, either their email addresses or their phone numbers, into Google under the audience menu, and then you can have it'll right away in the first few days show up and say, here's a list that you can target that has people that have similar traits to the customer list that you uploaded. If you don't have that or can't do that, well, then the remarketing lists will eventually get bigger and bigger. And after those remarketing lists get big enough, basically once they got like 1,000 people or more on there, then it automatically in the targeting options in your Google display campaigns will show up these similar to. It'll be like similar to a person who looked at an item within this particular category, or similar to a customer who purchased an item in this certain category, going back to what I was saying before. And then you can use those as your targeting choices. At that point, it should have the capability at least to start making money then. You'll still have to run your ads for a while for it to start working, but at least once you get to that level, now you've got enough sophistication in what you're doing for it to actually work, from what I've seen in most cases, versus just targeting a general interest or a category or a certain site. It's not sophisticated enough generally to work, even if you wait a long time. Not always. Sometimes it will work, but for most people it won't work. Okay, and so if you're wondering why it doesn't work with the default tracking options, well, then now you got the answer basically here. With that said, okay, you could run your first click display ads targeting a certain, just because you don't have a similar to audience yet, targeting or a customer list that you could upload, like I said, to get similar to audiences. You could simply target a certain category with your display ads until you have these similar to audiences show up, in which you have enough visitors that have been to the site, or even better, which a lot better, is having a similar to customer list. That's like 5 to 10 times better than a similar to just remarketing but not customer list, if you get my drift. But to generate enough customers after you've set up the capability for Google to track what your customers, what customers you have, to have these similar to audiences show up, you can do the first click display advertising to propagate enough customers so that the similar to your customers list can show up as a targeting option. You could just do search advertising, and through the search advertising, which is much easier to work, eventually your similar to audiences will show up, and that's the time you can do Google Display Network first click advertising, which is what I usually do, by the way. I almost never start first click advertising until I have these similar to audiences. With the exception of one major thing I'm going to talk about in a minute. Another way you could do it is you could set up the remarketing lists for your customers, or just people who've been to your site are not customers yet. Just leave it sit there, and then from your organic traffic coming in, now you'll propagate similar to audiences that you can target, which will show up right under your targeting settings. When you go into your targeting settings, it'll say similar to, and then the name of the audience that you had set up, remarketing or customer of this category. You'll see it right there. You could just wait until you have a customers from another traffic source that you already have coming in already, and then once the similar to shows up, you can go right to your first click display advertising campaign and get success much faster that way, like I talked about. Particularly when Google search ads, it won't work because it's too competitive, or whatever. There's some small occasions where you're going up against $10 billion a year companies where they hog all the space. They've driven up the prices. Google search ads won't work. In 90% of the markets, I'm getting search advertising to work, but in case you couldn't. 3, if you can't do search advertising starting out, right? Like I talked about, it's not profitable for you to run search ads. You want to get started with first click display advertising sooner. Instead of waiting for these similar two audiences to show up, I'm going to just go with targeting my competitors' traffic. What I mean by that is you're going to create a custom intent audience, and the definition for that audience is you're going to simply put the name of the brand name of your competitor, the trade name of your competitor, their URLs, their legal name, and then save it. And then, so with that, what that'll do is anybody who searched for your competitor in the recent, like 30 days or so, or been to their site, you'll be able to target them with your first click display ads now. So you'll do that for each one of your direct competitors. If you have indirect competitors, I recommend setting that up as a second custom intent audience, so you can bid differently for the direct versus indirect competitors. But that generally will work right away. Why? Because it adds more sophistication to what you're doing, and it really weeds down all possible options in which your ads can trigger for certain websites out there. So going back to the Forbes.com example, yes, you can basically advertise on Forbes, but only if they've been to your competitor's site. Obviously, the chances that being a bot click now is basically is nil, right? So that's what gets your ads to work versus not work, and be the one that gets into the category of making the, just as, could be millions of dollars of sales a year for your e-commerce or non-e-commerce business running display ads, whereas everybody else, mostly in your space, have no clue what to do to get it to work. As a final thing I'll mention on this video, it's not a solution of its own. So this is not going to fix all your problems, but it will add to if you add to what I've told you here. So far, you got ClickSeize, which is a click fraud weeding out software, which analyze all the IP addresses of all the people clicking on your ads. And if you got an IP address who came to your site and did not convert, it will make sure that IP address cannot click on your ad again, because what it'll do is it looks at the IP address of the person who clicked on your ads and then automatically send that to Google Ads as a IP exclusion, so that particular IP address cannot trigger one of your ads in the future again. And so basically, at least then, you're not going to get the same person twice that was a bot. But it doesn't do everything for you. It's just a nice to have an ad too that might weed out 10 or 20% of the bot traffic, but it's not going to weed out everything. You're going to need these other things, generally speaking, okay? So it's not a silver bullet, but if you're going to get into doing heavy Google Display Network, I do recommend actually doing it. It actually does an okay job with remarketing too a little bit. Started to use it for that, but for first click it helps. It really is, going to give you a measurable increase in your performance. We'll just say that, but you already got to kind of already be there with your results. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this video. I have a lot of videos on this channel about different PPC money making strategies. If you'd like to see some other stuff that I have there to help you out to make money with your PPC, I have them on this channel for you to view. I have a blog at guaranteeppc.com/blog with step-by-step instructions on how to build campaigns the way that I build them for our clients, in which we have to guarantee the results. If you'd like to see information along those lines, I have it there. If you have any questions or comments about anything I described on Google Display Network stuff, leave a comment down below. I get back to every single person who leaves a comment or a question on this channel within a day or two. And hope you enjoyed. Hope this was the one thing that really put you over the top in getting the Google Display Network to work for your brand, and really put it into perspective so you understand how to get it working for your brand in itself, and so you can be successful moving forward.